Hi, I am on day 2 of my vlogging kind of like challenge that I'm trying to do. It's not really a challenge, but I'm just trying to create something where I can share a story about one of my former students who changed my life in an effort to share with other people some stories of people that are coming to our country and that have come to our country and how they have done some really cool, positive, great things and what we can learn from immigrants, especially in light of what's been going on recently in our country. So, having said that, my story today is about a boy named Pablo, who I had a student of mine a student of mine in my second year of teaching. I was in Arkansas at the time still. Let's not talk about why I was in Arkansas, but I was in Arkansas. And he moved in to our school in October. And he was super curious, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, happy. In our minds, he was a very happy-go-lucky student. We would walk through the hallways and he would say, "Maestra, ¿qué es eso? What's that, maestra? What's that, teacher? Tell me what that is and what's that?" And so inquisitive and wanted to learn everything. He took his job as a student very seriously, but was also very happy and telling us jokes in Spanish, and just a very fun kid to teach and to be around. So he came in October of his second grade year. He was like 7 or 8, and we took our statewide assessment, our big test, in January of that year. And so I remember taking all my students together in a room. We had to all take this test together. And I told them all, because I'm kind of embarrassed I did this, but it was my second year of teaching, and I think I was taking on what the state was telling me about this test. This test is so important. And so I told all of them, "Este examen es muy importante." This test is so important. It is the most important test you will ever take. So please, please do your best. The room was silent. Passed out the tests. Hand them out one by one. I hand Pablo his. He opens up the test booklet. I say, "You may begin." And he vomited everywhere. Sorry, that was a gross reenactment, but he vomited everywhere, all over the test booklet. I was like, oh my gosh. Oh. So me being, a nervous wreck, I was more worried probably about myself than I was Pablo even at the time. I mean, I was worried about Pablo, but I was like, oh my God, this kid vomited on a secure test booklet. So I called the test coordinator. Testing coordinator came down, who was our school counselor at the time. We didn't have assistant principals who did this job, and they took care of the mess, got him a new test booklet. Everything was taken care of, but he had to go home since he was sick. And we're like, oh my gosh, Pablo's so sick. So the next day he came back, and we're like, "We're gonna go make up your test, Pablo." I grab his hand. We're walking down to I don't know if I grabbed his hand, but I think I grabbed his hand. I don't know. We're walking down the hallway to the classroom to take the test. And he said, "We're taking the test again, teacher?" And I said, "Yes, we are, Pablo." Vomits everywhere. I'm like, oh my gosh. This poor kid is so sick. He should never have come back. He's so sick, is what I'm thinking. So I call his father. His father's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I thought he was better," because he wasn't vomiting at home. So his dad comes and gets him, and he goes home. He rests for a couple days. He comes back, and I go to get him. He literally sees my face at the door of his classroom, and he vomits. So this went on for 2 weeks. Or a week and a half or something. He never took the test because he was sick. Every time he would try to come to school, he was sick. And I, at the time, was kind of I was a bleeding heart. I still am a bleeding heart, but I was really a bleeding heart. And I was like thinking I could save the world, so one Pablo at a time. So I actually told the dad. The dad was so concerned about him missing this important test and wanted him to get better. So I told the dad, I said, you know what, hey, because he said, I want to take him to the doctor, but I'm nervous. I was like, look, I'll go with you. I will interpret for you. So I went with Pablo and his dad to the doctor, to the pediatrician's office, and I translated for him, and they poked him with all these needles and took all these blood tests, and all of them, of course, came back normal. He was healthy, just fine. And our nurse kept saying, though, at school, he can't come back until he's done vomiting. And she was very old school, so like if he walked in the door and he vomited, he was out. Did not matter. He was out. That was it. So he came back to school finally when the testing window was over. Like I said, like, you know, he kept trying to come back, but he would vomit. So then he came back and the test window was over. I was like, maybe, you know, this is going to be our moment now where he doesn't have to take the test. And maybe he's going to be fine. So he comes back, and one of our sweet little boys in our class sees him, and he says, Pablo, you're not sick anymore. You stopped throwing up. And the minute he said that, Pablo vomited everywhere. His breakfast, yeah, just, it wasn't pretty. I used to be like a pukophobic. I was scared of puke, and then I became a teacher, and I was like cured of that. Because kids just like puke everywhere all the time. So anyways, so poor Pablo, I was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna have to go home. The nurse is gonna be like, he's out. So he left, and after he left, I took the class aside and I said, okay, we're gonna have a little conversation here, and we're gonna talk about the fact that Pablo was sick, and it seems like it's making him more sick when we talk about being sick. So we're not going to talk about sickness anymore in this classroom. As far as Pablo is concerned, or any of us are concerned, nobody has ever been sick. Nobody is suffering from illness. The word sickness is just not in our vocabulary. Nobody, you know, like if a kid is absent, we're just going to say they're absent. We will never say that that child is sick. We're just not going to use that word. It's not going to appear anywhere. And the kids were like, okay. I said, do you understand? Yes, we understand. Okay. Next morning, Pablo comes in. There was a little moment where I saw, and it was Rodolfo again. I saw on Rodolfo's face, I'm like, don't go there, Rodolfo. Do not say, welcome back. Don't say you were sick. No. I mean, it sounds heartless, but like, I just knew that this is what we had to try. So we said, hi, good morning, kept working. So everything was normal. And sure enough, no vomit the entire day. The day was great, and we carried on the rest of the year with no vomiting from Pablo. It was wonderful, because we learned finally that we had to just get his brain off of it for him to recover from that anxiety. And so what I learned from Pablo, and Pablo went on to become this amazing, incredible kiddo. I get chills when I think about him. I don't know, after I moved from Arkansas, I don't know exactly what happened to him, but when I was still in Arkansas, he was very successful completing his schoolwork and was exceeding our expectations above and beyond in the classroom. But what I learned from him by being his teacher was that, first of all, sometimes people who need help look a lot like people who don't. So sometimes people that we think are happy and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and have it together on the outside actually don't have it together. And I don't know, that just was an important lesson for me to learn as a teacher, that I don't always see what the reality is. And so it's our job as educators and as parents and as just people to look deeper, to always dig deeper, to always go under that other layer and try to figure out what's going on. So that's the first thing I learned. Second thing I learned is that tests are dumb, especially when they do not measure what a person really knows, because hello, what kind of test is going to measure what Pablo knows if he just came to our country 3 months ago? It's like giving a baby, like telling a baby they have to walk right away when they're 1 month old. That's ridiculous. You know, there's a learning curve. You have to try. And me telling a baby, this is really important that you do this, or punishing them for not doing it well, or, you know, any of that stuff is not, it's not going to work. And it's the same thing with these tests. And yet still here we are almost 20 years later giving these assessments to kids that are not, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have any assessments, but I'm just saying I think it's ridiculous to give a child who just came to our country an assessment that's not going to clearly measure what they know and don't know. And it's just kind of, in my opinion, a waste of their educational time. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is that the body and the mind are so connected, and it's always important to think about what signs we're feeling in our body. And as I found this out in my own life many years later after teaching Pablo, but he was the first person I thought of when I was going through a separation in my marriage, actually, and I kept vomiting because I literally could not, and I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. When I would try to eat something, it just would come up. It's disgusting, I know, but my mind and my body were so connected, and it was like I was trying to suppress all of that pain. And yeah, I don't know. And I was trying, my body wanted to expel it or something. And in the same way, I think Pablo's body just wanted to expel the anxiety that he was feeling, and he didn't have any other outlet for it. And then the fourth thing I learned, actually, oh, there's another thing I just thought of, is that the best way to get through something sometimes is to stop thinking about it, to literally stop thinking about it. It's like, I know that sounds so counterintuitive, but man, that right there, it saved Pablo, it saved our classroom, and it has saved me as an adult in my adult life, as far as like realizing that sometimes when we want something really badly, or when something is disturbing us, we have to just give our brains a break from thinking about it before we can actually learn the lesson. So that's my little lesson about Pablo. Thank you guys for listening.